the meeting to order for the record so that it's on tape. If you could do a roll call, please.
Randy Mason, Mark Saunders,
Jess Beringer.
Linda Kaufman. I thought that we had everybody. I thought that Trey was going to be here, but maybe he'll just be late. So we have a quorum, that's good. I sent the minutes out almost delinquently, but I did get them out. They're here if anybody needs copies of them for the September 26th meeting. Are there any comments? Did I capture everything?
Mm-hmm.
Motion to approve?
So
motion. Second.
Mark, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have one correspondence. This is kind of exciting. We have someone who wants to join this committee.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if anybody knows him. The gentleman's name is John Dewey.
No.
Has pretty great credentials, was in education, wants to join. So we haven't had this happen before where we have an active meeting, so I'm putting it under correspondence, letting, oh, Trey, just got you on. We're good, not to worry. All we did was get the approval of the minutes. Oh, is that off?
That looks clock's off.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay.
My mistake, I was going by that one. So anyway, we have someone who is actually interested in joining the committee. Cool. So John Dewey, I don't know him, but I've heard good things about him. He's been in the school district. The typical process for this is that we as a board don't have to approve it. I have to just submit it to the commissioners and they have to approve. But I wanted to let you know, and I'm going to send it on to Paul so that the commissioners put him formally on. Unless anybody has an objection, I think getting another person.
I know John, not real well, but well enough to say I think he'd be an excellent member of the committee.
Is he a resident? Is he a businessman?
He is that's one of the questions, part-time resident for 34 years. Okay. He's been a property owner for 34 years. He's a retired school district person. He's available for daytime meetings, and he does own property within the community. He was Senior Director of Special Education for Christiana School District.
Well, I think it also would be good to have a sort of part-time resident's perspective. So,
yeah.
So that's good.
Okay.
Is he full-time now, or is it?
No, I think he's part-time, but he's
okay.
willing. He lives in Scarborough, but he's willing to do it. I'll just kind of say. Parking access is an integral part of the impression visitors developed for our city. Since we're a small city with a defined parking capacity, it's increasingly important that we adopt and maintain parking policies and procedures that meet the needs of a range of stakeholders, including full and part-time residents, businesses, and visitors. I believe my experience as a public school administrator and special education director would be valuable in assisting the Parking Advisory Committee to assemble and analyze data, solicit input from stakeholders, and communicate effectively with the Board of Commissioners. Good? Good to go. Okay, yep. So, all right. Under old business, I sent out the survey that we asked the chamber to do. A couple things I want to make a comment about before we get into a discussion is the hope originally was that it was going to go to both, to everybody in the downtown by utilizing both the chamber and the Main Street. Unfortunately, without getting into all the gory details, they weren't necessarily willing to share their databases for a variety of reasons, and therefore it had to either be from one of them or the other. And Carol called me shortly after we had decided to do this and said they've agreed they would send it out on their own and we could send it out. The challenge I had with that was that you would end up with duplications. And therefore, to me, when you have duplicate people responding to a survey, it sort of invalidates the results. So the decision was made to do it through the chamber since it was their discussion to begin with. So Main Street didn't participate in it. I assume that there's a lot of people that are on both Main Street and the chamber, but we don't have any knowledge of that. So having said that, the survey went out, it was very, and I appreciate Jess and Mark, you guys working on the questions. We just added one caveat to it, but it appears as though only 48 people or 40 people responded. So I want to say that because although that's probably a decent number for a survey, I don't know how many they actually sent out, but you know, I always worry that we make some broad decision based on 40 respondents. But it is a good base. So I'll open it up at this point. Anybody that got it wants to talk about it. I think you know, this was the survey that we sent out to find out about the one main issue that the businesses that we have heard from have been concerned with, and that is the 3-hour time limit. And that's what we were wrestling with. You remember the task force that we went to was really supposed to be about permits, and it got really into the 3-hour time limit, and that's as far as it got. And then the last couple of meetings, people have been coming voicing opposition, which, you know, isn't all that untypical. Is a lot of times you don't get people coming in favor of things, you get people to come against things. So, you know, I just want to weigh all that. But that's where the survey was. It was a 4-question survey, I think. 5-question survey, basically. What do you believe is the most pressing downtown Rehoboth parking problem? Are you in favor of the 3-hour limit? If the answer was no, would you be in favor if better instruction was provided? And then if you're in favor of being able to extend time on meters, which would you prefer? And the questions were for from 3, oh, I cut mine off, 3 to 4 hour, 3 to 6, or unlimited. So those are the questions. So I'll open it up on that. Anybody have any insight or thoughts or how we want to approach this and discuss it?
I don't think 40 is enough.
I'd have to agree. I think 40.
I mean, I would just hand it right back to her and say, you know what, without getting at least a third or more, I don't think it's.
How many?
I don't know, how do you make a decision based off of?
How many do you think they have? Do you have any idea?
She said, I think, what, 300?
Yeah, but that's entirely outside the city also.
Oh, no. They've got almost 2,000.
Oh, they have 360 just in the
Almost
city.
3,000 members. I mean, they got a lot of members
I didn't know they had that many businesses even.
between Dewey and the highway and
Right,
people
so
that
we
want to
don't-
be associated with the people who are in the chamber that are from other jurisdictions. But I think downtown, because I think even Main Street has a count of 200 and some in their coffers.
Well, one thing is that today, I think we need to make a decision as to how we're going to request the commissioners to move forward. And that decision would be either do nothing, leave it as is, or indeed make some changes, and if we make changes, what are they? So we need to keep that in mind, even though we only got a small response.
Well, and the other thing, and I realize that it's not out in the public yet, and I apologize because we didn't get it on the website before the meeting, and so I'll get copies for people. But, you know, the main question, what do you believe is the most pressing Rehoboth Beach parking problem? And the answers that they could pick from was time limits on meters, price of meters, the signage, and the hospitality. And out of the 40, only 17 said the time limit. So less than half of the people that responded to a small sampling said the time limit. So I think we have to remember that
I'm looking at 42%.
it's 42,
The time limits.
yeah, 42%, but it's less than half. 17 people.
Oh, I got you. Right.
Right. 17 people. So less than half of the people that took the survey said that it was a major problem on a small sample. That to me gives a little bit of a challenge. The second part of it that I thought was interesting is that the overwhelming people that did respond said that yes, they thought the 3 hour was a problem. However, it was a 50-50 split that said if it was better signage, would they be okay with it? So when you break that down from you know, starting with 40 being a small sample, only 17 saying it was the most pressing problem, but the majority saying that the time limit of 3 hours was a problem, but then half of them said if we had better signage, we'd be okay. I don't think that's overwhelming.
Well, and I do want to point out, my understanding is they did approve the merge sign program. I read that. I wasn't actually there. Sharon, is that the case? That the merge sign program was approved to go into effect for this next year?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so, you know, that was one of the big complaints we heard verbally from people that and we knew that from the beginning because we even said in our recommendations that if you make the changes, we need to have the signage for it, and we didn't. So now that we are going to have the signage, hopefully any of the issues will be improved one way or another. So we need to also keep that in mind.
Well, the one, going back, the one thing that, in the 3-hour time capsule is, it was supposed to coincide with the meters going off at 9. So if you showed up at 6 o'clock, you'd pay your 3 hours and you were done. Now you'd have to pay your 3 hours and then move it for that extra hour. And, that's something that, again, this speaks to, getting the whole package put together. If we go to 4 hours, then I think anything more than that starts treading, and starts messing with people who have that day business. I still think we need to move people around. And with better signage, I think we got like a 50-50 split between those who were, thinking that 3 hours was an issue. But if it was better signed, half of them said it's not that big of a
But
problem.
we have to remember, at this meeting, 99% said it was an issue. I think we have to consider with the majority, the overwhelming majority thinks 3 hours is too short.
I don't know that I agree with that. The overwhelming majority of the people that we've heard
Showed up.
from.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So have said that, yes.
Correct.
But I'm just going to say this again. Well, there's two pieces of this. One is we can move forward with a recommendation that, and I'll just lay out the different options of leave it as it is, go to 4 hours, let people go forever, whichever it is. If we choose to make the recommendation because we believe it's still the right thing that it should stay as it is at the 3 hour, then I think it's also our responsibility to say, however, we've had this survey that has some people against it. We've had people show up to task force. I mean, I don't think we should stand up and say, this is overwhelmingly popular. And I suspect that the audience will let them know. Now,
But the other side of that coin is, everybody had an opportunity to come to this meeting. Everybody that was on the survey had an opportunity to return the survey, and they didn't. Main Street, the gentleman sat right here from Main Street and did not make an attempt to reach out to us, to how do I get my people involved? So I'm getting the attitude
He sat
that,
down with the chamber, though, and it became a chamber issue.
Well,
And
he could've
so
come-
understanding the dynamics between Main Street and the chamber, having been in that position, he backed down, or whatever that word would be, and let the chamber handle it their way.
well,
So
that's
he
sort of
wasn't
my
going
point,
to do
though. I'm
that.
feeling that the people that didn't respond or didn't speak out really don't care. I don't think they're against it or for it, they just don't care. So we're dealing with the people that care. And it seems of those people, the majority think 3 hours is too short.
so
Well, I'm thinking I can think of 1, 2, 3, I could think of 5 people that were at that meeting. And then how many were against it? There weren't that many more at that meeting that were against it. There were a lot more people, but each place brought a couple people with them too. I'm not buying into it. I think you had like a handful of really angry people.
and
You're talking
And
about the chamber
blaming,
meeting.
blaming their poor business on the parking, when there were a lot of people who had a very good summer, and they weren't gonna come in and complain. They just didn't think it was an issue.
just
I've always been in favor of the 3 hour, and I know that even nationwide, the general accepted turnover in restaurants is 2 hours for a meal. And with 3 hours, we give people time to do something else. But we have the beach also, and there are a lot of people who just can't get used to the fact that we're talking about the core business section only. If they want to stay on the beach all day, they should be doing it 2 or 3 blocks on either side, not feeding the meters on Rehoboth Avenue. So I agree, we have to keep turnover for the stores, for the restaurants, and for short term, if somebody's gonna go to the beach for 3 hours, that's their option.
yeah, so I think it's important, you bring up a very good point. So, I mean, let's go back to sort of the parking 101. The idea behind this from the very beginning was creating turnover and making sure that that one space could be used by 4 or 5 or 6 cars in the 12-hour period instead of 1 car or maybe 2. So, I mean, that's the kind of parking 101. The other piece of this is we never said the entire city should be 3 hours and you're out of luck. So the education process is always a very painful piece of it, because what we're saying is, if you want to stay longer than 3 hours, if you want to do the clear space and a dinner. You can do clear space and a dinner. Here's where you can park for 12 hours. And you may have to walk a block.
Yeah.
And in clear spaces case, I think it might, well, it depends where they end up at this point, but okay, I mean, it's a block. If you want to go to a restaurant that has a 2-hour wait, then, use one of the meters that are more than the 3 hours. And so maybe the compromise is 4 hours, maybe it's 3 hours and being able to up it for an hour. Keeping in mind what Carol said is keep it simple. So we don't want to get it too complicated, but it's not that we're saying you can't do it. And yes, I heard people say, well, my people pulled up and when they found out they couldn't stay all day to come into my store after they were at the beach, they got in and left. And I think that's where the city has to come into play on this education process that says, you can come all day to the beach, you just have to go here, not down the court.
Well, yeah, I mean, the communication from, to the public has to be there. I mean, it was almost non-existent last year. We just let the Gazette run with it and then social media run with it. We should be leading, we should be wagging the tail, not the other way around with all this. But I don't see that changing. I don't see that
This is a new problem for us, so education will help. Most other cities you go to, they've already established this and people are used to it and it's not a problem anymore.
Because there's options. So, I mean, do we hold the course at 3? Do we say unlimited? Mark, I'm hearing you. I don't want to put words in your mouth,
No.
so I'm just, do we hold the course at 3? Do we say maybe we go to 4? Maybe we do 3
I sort
and
of
1?
believe in giving the constituents what they want, and they don't want 3. That's how I'm feeling about it.
But it is true, it's that the vocal ones are the ones who complain about what we
But everyone
have.
else had an opportunity to complain.
But
But if we solve the problem, if we give in to doing that.
well, and I think human nature isn't to come and say, good job. It is to come, we only hear the complaints.
Although some of them made good points. Steve Fallon, I believe his name is, made the point that he's in the whatever, 3rd block, we'll say, so, or 2nd block. So he needs people to walk by his store on the way. They don't go to, he's not a destination. The restaurants are destinations, so he needs somebody to walk by his store on the way to dinner and have time on the way home, on the way back to their car or whatever, and have a half an hour, or whatever to go in and spend money in his store. And I think there are a lot of smaller businesses like that that rely on the destinations, the big restaurants, the small restaurants.
That rely on the beachgoer to be
right,
their casual.
Exactly. They need the casual stroller, and with 3 hours, we're not giving them enough time to stroll.
Well, taking a look at the pictures, though, that were sent to us, someone could very easily get out of one zone and go to the next zone and be right in front of his store.
They could. I mean,
But
And
the
not
comment-
have to walk, which is what they all tend to want to do anyway.
The comment from most people was that they weren't doing that. Once they got in the car, they left. Now, I don't believe, though, with the 3 hours, that they were beachgoers for the most part anyway, because if they're coming to the beach, they're usually coming from more than 3 hours. So, I'm not sure that person who got in their car and left was necessarily on the beach for 3 hours and then decided, oh, I've got 3 hours, I gotta go.
Well, except
See, I think she needs to, I mean, going back to Carol, is she needs simple. The thing is that what would be great probably is to have the first block have 3 hours, and then the second, another extension opportunity in the others, because it worked down there. And I went around again, and the only complaints I heard were from Nicola's and around the corner of the pond. But I think some of that was also personal, with Pond, I think it was a personal thing as well, of him not being able to feed his meter when he wanted to. He had to actually personally move a little bit. There's a little bit of that in these things as well.
could it be that maybe the 3 hour limit goes too far up Rehoboth Avenue? Maybe it should only be in the first couple of blocks?
Well, I can tell you, I mean, there's retail in the 3rd block.
Right, but they need the walkers, that's what I mean, they're the ones that are saying they don't have the walkers.
No, we had the people who previously parked all day long. And I was gonna say, I still observed people walking from, even 4 to 5 blocks out with their beach chairs going down to the beach, down Rehoboth Avenue, when they could have parked much closer, going over a block or 2. So that human nature of, as soon as you come in and find the first parking space you see, still existed.
So, you know, in my mind, for the people coming to the beach, the attraction now is, I'm gonna drive down Rehoboth Avenue and I'm gonna circle until I find a spot. And when I find a spot, that's where I'm going, period. With change of behavior and signage, when I get to, you know, 4th Street or, you know, 2nd or, you know, wherever I'm at, and I start saying, okay, I'm going to the beach, now I gotta go this way because my signs now say, you know, long-term beach parking or, you know, whatever it is that they're doing that directs me, perhaps I won't be circling. I mean, there's a couple other complications of this, which I've talked about briefly, and that's the one, the no left turn scenario. So you get onto Rehoboth Avenue, you can't get off without, you know, and I understand why, but
You just gotta take a right.
yeah, you gotta take a right, you can't take left, but once, you know, so people kind of get in that circle pattern. So I think we have to, my goal is to nail this down today with some recommendation, the next meeting, finalize our recommendations, because we have to get this to the commissioners. So I think in the next 2 meetings, but I'd like to come up with something here.
Well, and I did see this merge presentation twice, and, you know, I thought it was really very well done.
Yes.
And I'm very excited about
Yes,
Right.
it's
the
gonna make a
information,
difference.
I agree.
because I think,
Yeah.
I think so much of it is the fact that, you know, change is hard for people. And, you know, they do need to know what's coming ahead, and they do, you know, once they get used to whatever it is we come up with, they'll adapt to it. And I think that's a real good start as to a way to adapt and keep people informed.
Sharon, if I can ask you, what's the time frame for the implementation?
May of next year.
Okay, so it would be before the summer.
Everything should hopefully be done. That's why the commissioners expedited the vote.
Right.
And you mentioned long-term beach parking, you know, this way and that way. Is that gonna be one of the signs? Because I think that's fantastic. It's simple
Absolutely.
and it's,
It simplified all the signs in town,
Yes.
but it was directing people off of the avenue to
Yes.
show where longer-term parking is, where parking lots are.
It starts at the canal. It takes them, if you haven't seen it, takes them from the canal at the circle. They take off all the other signs that are currently there and have beach, downtown, long-term, short-term. It's like an
It's
airport.
good.
It's just like an airport.
The other thing that they had is in several places in the city, kiosks. So by the time people are parked, and maybe the first time they do park it, every time they, you know, where they've done in the past at a 3-hour spot, and if they look at a kiosk, they're gonna read, oh, I can only stay here 3 hours, or whatever we end up deciding, but I can go down a block to park for 12 hours, and that's that kind of information's on these kiosks.
Right.
So I think that'll be very helpful.
I guess I'm still in favor of the 3-hour. I would be able to be swayed in, you know, into saying one extension of an hour maybe. But once you get past 4 hours, we're really not creating turnover. So,
Okay.
and I don't know if that could be a bit of a challenge with the technology to, you know, say you can only extend it for 1 hour.
Well, I'm thinking the 4 hours combined with the signs is a significant change. I mean, the signage is all important. I wish the signs were up and running now.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's
and then
one
take
of the
another
last-
survey.
right,
Because I think the signs will help tremendously, whatever the hours.
I'm not willing to give up on the time limit, but if we go to 4 hours, can we back it down to 3 again if we feel that, or once we go to 4, are we then stuck at 4?
I think once you go, you're gonna be impossible to pull back.
I mean, because I think, I don't know, you know, like, if nothing happens, I think we need 4. And by that, I mean, if like the signage doesn't really work, if you know, all that, I mean, we'll have extremely angry people. And they'll get vocal and it'll
Well, they'll go to the commissioners, and the commissioners will
do what they
do what they
want
want.
from the pressure anyway.
Sure.
I think
So-
without a signage program,
But we don't know, I mean, we've seen the presentation, we just don't know how it's gonna work, you know, in life.
if we do 3 in the core, could it be 4 farther out? Or what will that be?
We're trying to keep
And
it
it
pretty
gets
simple, so
complicated.
just the 3 or the 12.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that kept coming up is you can't have too many different things.
That gets a little too.
I mean, ideally, we do 3 during the day and then, maybe extend it.
Well,
in
that's
the evening
something
or
I would be more,
But I'm not sure.
I don't know if that solves the problem of the people who came against it to begin with.
Then there's the overlap problem, they come at 5 and 1.
Can I ask you guys, is it 3 hour plus adding 1 hour possible, or do you have to do it in the same, do you remember? What,
I think you can add any,
I
I think
certainly
you add any quantity you want.
I think probably the recommendation would be, in terms of a communication and signage standpoint, maximum of 4 hours. It would be difficult to say 3-hour maximum with the ability to extend up to an hour.
It's hard to
Yeah.
convey that, right?
and I don't think that's as simple, I
Right.
keep hearing Carol say, keep it simple, so.
Saying 4 hours is a lot simpler. Sure.
Instead of being able
Right,
to extend.
don't just, 4 hours period. 4 hours max.
One other, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I'm gonna throw it out there as just another option. If we did a 3-hour limit, and so that the signs still say 3-hour limit, but then permit 1 extension, at least it tries to make people stop and think, wait, 3-hour limit, so I can go here for the 12-hour limit, but then could satisfy some of the people who felt they needed to stay longer.
But the problem with the extension is they have to go back to the car, and what we heard over and over is they didn't leave. They don't pay and then go back to
But
the
if they're
restaurant.
allowed to extend, can't they do that from their Park Mobile app? I think they can.
Can they do it?
Yeah, they don't
They
have
just,
to
if
go
they
back.
paid with
Do
a
they have to
credit
do
card,
another
they'd have
3,
to
or
go
can
back.
they do just 1? I don't know, I've
No,
never used Park.
they can do whatever.
They can do just one more.
They'd have to go back if they used the credit card. What's really interesting, I was just up in Newark, and their majority of their parking lots are being converted into app only. Like no cash, no
cash.
credit cards, nothing. I mean, just, it's really interesting.
It's college
So,
town.
I guess, but
Get away with it in
college
college
kids aren't,
towns.
they're not the ones driving and parking though.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
in general,
I mean, there's a lot of similarity between our 2 towns.
So where are we?
I think Trey had a good compromise suggestion with the 4 hours plus the signage provisions.
Yeah.
With the understanding, and 4 hours is still gonna get you turnover, you're still not gonna get an all-day beach person.
Right.
I could live with 4 as a recommendation. I mean, the commissioners are gonna listen,
Does that solve the issue of the people that came in? Is 4 hours gonna mean anything to them, or is it just gonna be like,
Well,
What's the
what does
difference?
survey says?
Anything
Anything better than 3
Yeah.
was good.
4 was the least desirable of the
Right.
time change, but, again,
Unlimited was the favorite, so.
I'm gonna say this, and I need to say this, the same people that were complaining about this are the same people that said, meters are terrible, but you have to keep them in the summer.
Right.
Remember, I mean, I kept trying to push, they loved the, whatever that Meterless Monday promotion was. And when I, sort of tongue-in-cheek, but asked them, why don't we just make it meterless summer?
And they said, that's great.
No, they were all like, hell no, you can't do that because, then everybody's gonna park for free. I mean, so I'm not quite sure those that are arguing are sort of making, I don't mean to sound, but the complete argument, because some of what they were arguing was contradicting.
Although it
themselves.
does make sense that if you come into town in the summer and you want to go to, Left Bank or wherever, to Pines for dinner, you're going to get there, you're going to wait a half an hour until you get your seat, you're going to eat an hour and a half, and by then, there's not much time to do much cruising around. You need to get back to your car and leave. So maybe 4 hours will give you 1 more hour, which could make
4
Because,
hours.
so use Pine as an
You'll
example,
buy dessert,
one block over, they can park for 12.
Well, but they don't know that yet. Once the
Well,
signs
so
are up,
that's
they
part
don't
of
know
the
that.
battle here.
Actually, but the Pines have done an excellent job in educating their customers. If you
Have
talk to them at the Pines, they'll say that they don't have an issue with the parking because they have educated their regular clientele to park in the lot right here,
Oh,
the
yeah,
City Hall
they're
lot.
smart, yeah.
Because all you do is just walk right, straight,
Sure,
and you've got unlimited, you got 12 hours here and there's usually parking.
it's good marketing.
So, but to go back, and if someone's coming for the day, 3, 4, 5 is gonna discourage them from parking on Rehoboth Avenue, right?
Yes.
6, you start saying, okay, well, we can stay here
Yeah,
for
no,
6.
right.
But, so if we go to 4, I think we're telling, or we're diverting enough people who wanna stay for the day to places that are a little bit out of the way, that would allow us to encourage turnover from within. So you're gonna get the people who are here for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours, if we bump it up to 4. So I think if we take it to 4, I think 5 is pushing it a little bit, and 3 obviously has been deemed not enough. So I think we could probably solve that turnover problem with 4 hours. I think it's a show of listening to our constituents,
It's a compromise.
stakeholders, and and going to, like Monty said, somewhere there's a compromise in here somewhere, and maybe that's the compromise, because it still discourages people from parking all day and to go elsewhere where you can, and yet it still will turn over, and you're going to have people that are only going to be there for 2 hours and leave.
The other part is I hate to give up on something that I truly believe is the
Believe
right
it.
thing because of the lack of signage and a couple other things, so it's coming together. Now, having said that, I'll say this again, we are a recommending body. We can sit up here and we'll have this great debate and we'll recommend, and if we go to 4 hours, the commissioners are still gonna do what the commissioners are gonna do, but in the presentation that I would do would be to have this kind of, in a small synopsis recap to say this is why we're choosing to continue to
The
recommend
logic.
the
What's
4.
the logic?
What's
for,
the logic behind
And
it?
a little
Yes.
more logic is financial, if they go in for the 4 hours and they're paying $3, it's $12. For $4 more, they can get a daily pass and stay all day.
Well,
So it's pretty close to the selling point of, hey, just pay $3 more and stay all day, get a permit.
with the permit and walk a little.
Right.
So what do you think? Should we, I'm comfortable recommending 4.
I'm good with 4.
I'm good with 4.
I'll make a motion that we recommend to the commissioners of increasing the max limit on the Rehoboth Avenue that is currently timed at 3. Baltimore and Wilmington, those 2 blocks as well, from 3 to 4 hours.
I second.
Okay, so discussion?
From the signage standpoint that the city has and I believe is keeping, because I think that the signs about pay here and probably this 3 and 12-hour sign that goes up, that's not part of the merge program because they're on each block. So by changing it from 3 to 4, we're talking about just one little sticker that would have to go on where the 3-hour is now. So wouldn't that make that also easier from the city standpoint?
So right now, we're actually in the process of completely revamping the signage in terms of the hour restrictions because we struggled with that this past summer. So we had signage, despite what's been said, we had signage for 3-hour maximum parking, 12-hour maximum parking. It's just that nobody really noticed it. So we're actually working right now with Park Mobile to try and incorporate signage for not only the Park Mobile zone, but also regulatory information for the city so we can get it all on one sign.
Great.
Likely what I would do then is probably make the recommendation that we do a smaller sign under that says either 3-hour or 12-hour, because if it changes in the future, I'd hate to go back and redesign the Park Mobile and regulatory signs. But right now, the pay meter here signs would stay. We're just revamping sort of that regulatory signage, make it stand out a little bit more and hopefully provide.
You need a
Two-sided.
front and back. You need a
Double-sided,
Right,
exactly.
right.
And Evan, would the wayfinding come into this also? Would their signs also incorporate the new information?
Probably not in terms of, for example, season,
Prices.
hour, enforcement hours, things like that, just because it could change from summer to summer. But mostly the merge program is going to be high level to direct people towards those regulatory signs.
And I know it directs them towards lots.
Correct.
I don't recall though, is there something that suggested longer term versus the short term? Or
Not longer term or short term, just pointing in the direction of where there could be
additional parking, okay. So they're gonna have to take that from the webpage, from the kiosk, it's going to be part of the educational process.
Yep, and then also trying to incorporate all that so it's consistent with the new parking brochure as well.
Right.
I thought in his presentation that he gave on the September 20th meeting, there were signs that said like beach only and downtown and that sort of thing. Am I correct?
There's sort of directional signage towards destinations, so
Right.
whether that's the Art League, City Hall, things like that, but there wouldn't be any sort of long-term parking this way,
gotcha, okay.
short-term parking this way. And then anything that says 3-hour maximum parking, anything like that is more regulatory, that would be the city.
But it would be easy for you to change at this point to 4-hour maximum park.
So,
Yes,
That's a critical
because we're
message.
leaving
How do
it
we
open.
get that one?
yeah, how do we, so that, I must have missed that nuance, because I thought there was actually gonna be signs that sort of directed towards longer term
Yeah, I
parking.
did too. That was some of the point.
Right now, it's just towards additional parking, and then also there would be a sign indicating that vehicles have gone from a metered area to a permanent area.
Boy.
Instead of additional, can we change it to long-term?
So here, let me just say this, the thought behind that, and I missed this, and I apologize for that, but the idea behind this is to let the person know before they get out of their car and park that there are alternatives for longer term parking. So I thought that it was going to say not just, beach, but, this is your, I wouldn't go so far as to say your 12-hour meter, but long-term parking this way, short-term, or something that gets them to know what they're going.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to the fact that it might change in the future. So if we were to do a complete wayfinding signage that shows longer term parking versus short term parking, if that were to change in the future, then those signs would have to be remanufactured.
Yeah, I think you're right, that it was really just showing more additional parking, and, at the lots, they may have something that then says 12-hour that you're gonna see right away. But on the avenue, I don't think you see a sign that says 12 hours this way, 4 hours here.
If I saw something that said long-term that way, short-term here, I think I would,
Yeah.
in most normal cases, move that way. If I saw something that said additional parking here,
It'd be the
that
same
counts
as-
for someone, that's someone else's additional.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree
Because I
with
would-
that.
number one, and I'm gonna go number
I
one.
mean, I don't
and
wanna
we're
change all the work that they've done, but I think the signs need to say long-term versus short-term
Yes.
as I'm driving, and I don't know how
It's a shame
difficult
we
that
weren't
is.
involved with that more in the very beginning,
We were asked, I've said this
Well-
before, I wasn't able to commit
But-
myself to it, so
but they were.
that's not the city's fault, that's our fault.
But that was when it was really early. I mean, when we got down to the nitty gritty, things like this, we might have had some useful input.
Well,
for.
one of the things that he did make clear is that they're not fans of color coding. And to me, that was another thing that could have, in my mind, easily be done, that, the green signs are for 4-hour and the purple signs are for long-term. Because we're all used to that sort of thing at airports, for instance, and around. But they were very adamant about the fact that they don't like to.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
So I think our recommendation needs to be, and I know this might be the 11th hour and, difficult, but I think it has to be, if we're doing the 4-hour, that we also recommend that signs say long-term and short-term, because that's not making any
versus
commitment
additional.
to 3 versus 4 versus
Right.
12 that has to get, but the theory would be that this will always be long-term and this will always be short-term. Make that recommendation and let them go with that, but I don't think one works without the other.
I agree.
Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Mhm.
Can we, so
Motion?
I have a motion from Trey that we say the max would be 4 hours. Can
Where
we,
it's currently been.
3 hours. Can we add to the recommendation that the signs say long-term versus short-term parking?
Or is that another suggestion?
We can make that 2 motions.
Yeah, I think
Let's do two motions.
Okay, can I have a motion on that too? Well, let's vote on the other one, sorry. 3-hour to 4-hour, I have a motion from Trey, second by Randy. Any other discussion on it? Discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All, okay. Opposed? Second recommendation that signs direct people from long-term to short-term.
Somehow incorporate the difference between long-term and shorter-term parking.
Yeah.
Through the new signage.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, well, So I think that we have the next step between, you know, you've got to leave in 20 minutes, right?
Yes.
So,
And I have one question.
yes, sir.
What does this do to permit times? When do the permits end?
Well, that's the next series of
Okay.
things that we want to take a look at is, I
We
want to
started
find,
that and got into all of this.
I want to finalize all of
Yeah,
our
okay.
recommendations between the rest of this meeting and our next meeting.
Just because of what we just accomplished, it's an obvious that anybody who comes in at 5 o'clock and is given a choice, you know, a 4-hour meter, but knows that it's free in the residential areas, that's going to continue to be a problem. Okay, that's it.
All right, so, like I said, the goal, I don't think it's unreasonable, is that we, between this meeting and next, finish up these recommendations and make the presentation, and then let the commissioners do it. But we need to get it to them because it's beginning of the budget time, changes that, you know, we're recommending. They may or may not take any of this up. Once again, when I do it, I will make sure that we present it in such a way that they understand that sort of all the pieces go together, that, you know, it's the approach of everything going together, not just piecemeal and hope that we don't piecemeal it. So I don't think I think probably the biggest one to tackle next is the permits, because I think the majority of these, and what I'm gonna do for the next meeting is I will put together sort of the sheet that we've been working off of with where we are and what recommendations we've agreed on, because there's a lot of them we've already done. But I think the one that's outstanding at this point still is the permits. So should we talk about that one?
Can I just point out on permits, it's interesting that this meeting that we had, Chamber of Commerce, out of the 20-something comments, only one had to do with permits, and that said people shouldn't yell at people parking in front of their houses. So the point being that I don't think these folks, I don't think this constituency really cares about permits one way or the other.
The majority I've heard from people on permits is the residents.
Right, agreed.
And I've heard it both ways. I've heard some people say, I want it to be free after 5 because, you know, my company can't park there. Then I've heard from other people, and as a resident I've said it is, well, I can't get company because there's no space out there for them. So I don't care if it extends to 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night, because the hope would be, to your point, is that it isn't the best option, that we're still moving people around to either use the meters or the permits.
Well, God rest his soul, Joe was the strongest supporter of 5 p.m. off. And he was a resident, and he was in an area that was under attack, so to speak.
No, he's too far away to.
Was he?
He's on, he was on Hennepin Avenue.
Yeah.
That's just about, that's the edge of town. And I live near there, and we're not affected by the evening parking one way or another.
During the day, how about during the
Not
day?
even during the day, we're too far from the beach. We're
And-
literally a mile from the beach.
And let me say that
He was
No,
down there, I thought
well,
he was closer.
He was closer to the end, but he's not affected by evening parking. People don't park there and walk to town.
I don't know that it is not a citywide problem, I can tell you that.
Right.
I can tell you where we are on Laurel Street, it is. And I know in Country Club, people have different opinion too, but I will
Not
also
terrible.
say that the
We
challenge,
don't have a lot of renters, so there's plenty of spaces.
Right.
They have a lot of renters.
I was gonna say, the challenge isn't
The rent
even,
It gets into the
Everyone's-
rental,
right.
yeah.
the challenge is more the renters at this point that I
Right.
see, because what's been happening is as the houses are converted from the, you know, the 3 bedrooms that there were, maybe 4, they're now 5 or 6, or in some cases, we've got 2 on our street that are 7, who are bringing, you know, the 5 or 6 or 7 cars.
Right.
And they've got the 2 spaces that they're required, so they put those 2 that they're gonna use, and the other 4 or 5 stay on the street Saturday mornings.
That's what I've heard.
It used to be that as long as you could get on the street by, you know, 2 or 3 o'clock, you had a space. Now, those 4 or 5 cars come Saturday morning, early, if it's a nice day. They park on the street, and they don't move for the whole week.
Thursday night is the new Friday.
It's a new Friday.
Is Thursday night's new Friday morning?
Yeah.
Or
For
Friday?
everybody who works at home, I mean, they're free to go earlier, and we see it.
So I'm not
But
sure.
those are the owners, not the renters.
No, not the renters,
Yeah.
correct.
The running cycle really hasn't changed.
Now, most of them are still Saturday, some are
The-
Friday,
the-
Friday,
Yeah,
but,
the vast majority are Saturday.
so, and it was worse this year, in my mind, than ever, so I'm not sure it's the people coming in to go to dinner. I think it's a rental issue, and that only gets resolved with some dramatic changes that I'm not sure we're,
And the hour isn't gonna, changing the hours isn't gonna change
no,
that one bit
that's,
at all.
that's my
Like you
point.
said, it depends on where you live. In my neighborhood, nobody cares one way or the other about the hours. We really don't have that.
I don't think extending it to 7 o'clock in my neighborhood is gonna make a
No.
bit of difference. Where it may make a difference is I know that there are some employees that take a chance, that don't have to be at work till
Don't get
3.
a ticket.
But even then, when we tried to bring that up with this group, they didn't respond to that at
No.
all.
They, because I would think the majority of people who work at 3
Coming
o'clock
in
have a
early.
permit,
Right,
or they have a
exactly.
permit anyway.
Exactly.
So,
And they're buying transferables, and they're sharing them amongst each other. They're
Yeah.
doing the best
Yeah.
they can. It is a huge challenge to get staff and, you know, and have them buy a permit when they could go work in other places and not have to. And but that's not gonna change. We're not,
the people that argue
It's not
that
our
though,
issue.
is there, I understand that that's a challenge, but they have to buy them anyway because most of those
Right.
shifts start
no,
at
I know,
2
so
o'clock.
there's nothing that we can do to change all the permit issues, really, there's nothing that we can do to really affect them one way or the other.
I guess my thing
from
is
my
I've kind of backed off even
Yeah,
extending it
right.
past 5, because I don't think that's the problem. The
I
real
agree with
problem is houses need to have more parking provided if they're making bigger,
The
5 bedrooms.
Signage
but-
again, you drive into town and you see this guy with an umbrella and he could be selling lemonade for all anybody knows. It doesn't say, permit parking passes here with an arrow.
I think there's the little cones on the street.
But yeah, that's to protect the kids from buying ice cream or lemonade. Because really, honestly, you don't, and you come over Silver Lake and they're set up there, and you don't really know why. We know why because we've been here long enough.
We
But if
walk
you're
our
a new
dog by and
visitor-
get our dog biscuit every day.
Exactly, absolutely.
Yeah. So I
It's
again, I
important that
think
we get our dog
signage.
biscuits.
Again, signage again would also help us.
Well, I think one of the recommendations is to go to online permit sales, and I think that's one of the things that the city's moving towards also, so, which would help. So I guess I've been one of the biggest advocates for saying, let's extend them to 7, 8, or 9 and make them the same. The only thing that making them the same would be to make them the same. I don't think it's gonna
It's
solve,
not gonna really accomplish.
I don't think it's gonna accomplish the problem, and
And does that make it more complicated than, because right now everybody knows it.
Right,
Right.
It's simple.
yeah,
right.
exactly.
I can't believe I'm actually saying that, but as much as I think it all should be consistent, I just don't see it helping anything, because I don't think it's gonna get people to go less or more. And it is one of those things that you can still advertise to your customers as, hey, parking is free after 5 if you're willing to walk,
you're
which I
willing to
find is amazing, because they're willing to walk when it's free, but they won't walk when it's the 12-hour meter
Right.
versus the 3.
The only
Think
thing we
about
could change is it would still be nice if the meters matched the permits. And they do in the start now, but they still don't in the end, right? We're still
Right,
at
so
10
that's
days
what I'm saying, is
difference.
the only way we
Right.
would do it is if we made the permits till 9,
Right.
but the only
No,
justification.
no, I mean the
Today-
season, I mean the
Oh,
light
the
season.
No, they were the same.
I thought they only
No,
like
they
changed
did
one
this
end,
year.
did they change both ends?
They did change both.
They're the
Oh,
same.
okay, good.
Now, there
I
was,
stand corrected then.
there was some upset at the end, and again, I think it's, user error, but there were people who felt that they were not aware that it got extended at the end, and they threw out their permits or left them inside and got tickets, in front of their own houses, in the last couple of days. So we just need to be sure that information is out there as to what the final date is, and I don't know how you hit
It's
them
on
over
the
the head.
permit,
but
isn't it?
I
Date on the
I
permit?
know, but they just, they
Can't be much
remembered
easier
the
than
date.
that.
They didn't read that somehow it needs
For
to be.
years, they threw them out at Labor Day.
Right, exactly, so
Yeah.
somehow that needs to just.
Well,
be-
and so,
You
it's
have
in
to
the
keep
city
people where they
newsletter.
are, not
Yeah.
where they should be.
Right. I think it's out there. Let's go to one thing first, because we kind of jumped, but so it's the time, but also the season. Are we all in agreement at this point that we would keep the time to 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Even though it's not the same. So then the season is the same. Now, are we talking about extending the season at all, or?
No, Just leave the season match.
Well,
meters.
they should
Right.
match, but we need to, I guess, talk about, do we
Right.
extend the
Do we-
season for both?
The whole
Right.
season,
The
right?
whole
Yeah,
season.
yeah.
For 2 more weeks,
End of September.
end of September.
Yeah.
There's already no one here during the week. I mean, we just went through September and October. It's the Saturday that's the problem.
What about, that was the other thing, is do we extend it for weekends
Weekends,
only
yeah.
into the fall?
That would be okay too.
That's something that I would,
I think that sounds good.
but I'd rather, can we take a week and like go and, or a
Oh,
month?
I'd like to,
I wanna do that one like next month, cause I'd wanna
I wanna,
get more people involved in that
Yeah.
one.
I'm curious as to why you're shaking your head, because, I mean, you see problems
You
with.
really wanna confuse people doing that.
You think that that's not keeping it simple the way we're trying to do it?
Can't say free Monday to Fridays.
so let's
I guess-
contemplate that one a little bit, because I'm with you, I wanna kind of kick that around a
Can I
little
just
bit.
throw out something to contemplate? As a homeowner, when I go out in the middle of September, I see policemen, I see people lined up at the bathrooms, I see people sitting on the benches, and I'm paying for all of that. And yet, nobody's reimbursing the city for any of that. They're getting it, the outsiders, quote unquote, day trippers or visitors, or hotel guests, are getting all that for free.
Yeah, if you look at meters as,
It's a little annoying.
as a
You
user
know,
fee.
we have had a,
Well, yeah, how much should we just spend on bathrooms last?
yes, exactly.
I mean, it was what,
$750,000.
$750,000.
Yes, exactly.
None of us have really utilized it except maybe once.
I just think we need I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking at the opportunity to recoup some of the expense that we have.
See, I look at it more as Saturday it's harder to park last Saturday than it is any day during the summer.
It also controls the movement, the same way
Right.
on weekends,
Right.
and
Yeah.
frankly, weekends are busy
Yeah.
throughout the fall.
Maybe people would come during the week if it was free during the week. I wouldn't have any problem with having it free during the
The
week.
locals.
And maybe push some people from Saturday to Thursday.
But
So
I
would you
mean,
do permits also on weekends, or just drop permits?
Just drop them. Nobody's out there
It's
anyhow.
just for those few blocks that are 3 hours today, or I mean, were 3 hours, just keeping them. And I don't know that I would definitely not do $3 an hour. It doesn't need to be that much. I mean, $1.50 or something, just something to keep it honest and to try and keep people moving. Because I mean, there literally is zero parking on a Saturday. But
Just Saturdays?
Friday, no problem. Sunday, no problem. Monday to, Thursday, no problem. But
So-
it's just that one day,
Friday-
Saturday.
I'd almost think you'd have to do it 2 days to make it
Yes,
work.
Sunday
Friday,
is
Saturday.
too.
I would think it needs to be Saturday and Sunday.
Just
Versus Friday and
See,
Saturday?
Sundays, there's not an issue.
Well, it's not an issue, but we could get the revenue.
Well, I don't know.
No, because when I say there's not an issue, there's not that many people parking.
Fridays and Saturdays, though. I mean, I've been here Fridays where it's packed.
Maybe, see, I don't know.
Well, let's do this.
I,
I don't want to make a decision.
because
on
I've
this
been
at
paying a
this
lot of attention to that
Yeah,
since
so you're
September
thinking
rolled
Saturday
around.
just.
Friday, I mean, and the way that I kind of can judge it is I can look out my office to see Baltimore Avenue. And if, if it's empty, that means there's plenty of parking around. But it doesn't fill up till Saturday. People will have no problem parking on Baltimore and Wilmington to go to Rehoboth Avenue. But if you can't find parking on either, then that's a problem. And it's primarily, it's a lot of employees. I'm not gonna say primarily, it's a lot of employees that it would be nice to have them pushed off just for that day so that we can get more people into our town, be more hospitable, be more, again, that's,
Now it pushes them in the neighborhoods, but again, it's one
But it'll
day.
be-
no one seemed to have too many
But it-
issues with that.
And it's not really deep into the residential neighborhoods. There's a couple of blocks that are semi-commercial.
And kill
By
the
the
meters
hotel,
at like
over
5
Lake Pier.
o'clock. Just have the meters from 10 to 5.
And
You know what I mean? Something along those lines. Just something to kind of like say that, hey, this is a commercial district. I've never been in one commercial district where there isn't parking, particularly on a Saturday.
Oh, exactly. I took pictures again, particularly after the one woman had said how there were all these empty spaces in the middle of the summer in September, and there were people who were walking by the Jack Lingo office, which is quite a ways down. I bet not one of them was under 65 carrying all of their beach stuff. So they had parked further out on Rehoboth Avenue still, when it was free, walking all that distance. So, I mean, I think people are still busy and coming here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's funny to have people come in and, the third week of September on a Saturday and go, oh my God, I can't find parking. This is worse than the summer.
These pictures were during the week.
Yeah.
And there was no parking, and much of it may have been taken up by employees, I suppose, but there were people, multiple people, walking down 4 blocks to the beach with all of their stuff. Still.
Well, we had some gorgeous September.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of this is always weather dependent.
10 to 5 doesn't mess with dinner.
Right.
I mean, it
So a lot-
doesn't keep it
So a lot of
simple.
restaurants won't.
It's
have a
Saturday
problem.
only, I mean, if we say Saturday only 10 to 5, it's not keeping it simple, but it's, it's one change. But I think it's worth thinking about for next
Right,
meeting.
thinking and
Hopefully
talking.
it can be done easily without a lot of expense to the city. I mean, you don't want to lose money on the deal by having changing meter heads or whatever. I'm not sure how you do that.
Well, there's enforcement issues, now you've
Right.
got to keep people,
Right.
there's an
Yeah.
office. So, I mean, there's
Right.
some ramifications on that recommendation. That's why
Right.
I want to
Mhm.
Think
I'll-
about it a bit. Yeah.
talk to these
And-
guys a
and
little
maybe
bit.
we
To
can
have
talk a little bit.
ramifications
Yeah, we
and
can
to
talk
have
about that
pushback and
impacts you.
resistance. I mean, I really would like to have us look at it and
Might have
talk
to do
to other
Sunday
people.
just to break even, just.
I'm not looking at it as a money thing for the city.
As- I'm
But
looking
I'm
at
looking
border
at it in
control.
terms of, can people who make the trip from somewhere come into town and be able to park on a Saturday? And because we're saying that this is a destination for fall now and for spring. And we've got, all these festivals and all these events that, it's not just Sea Witch, but Jazz Festival. Jazz Festival, we needed to,
All the dog events and
We had
Film
friends who came
festival
into
and all.
town on Jazz Festival Saturday and were gonna go someplace or whatever, and they were like, oh my God, what were we thinking?
Right.
And turned right around and left because it was so packed.
In December, they have that 5K run, and you can't find a place to park anywhere. They even park in
Time
our
to go.
neighborhood. They have 5,000 people here or something.
marathon.
So let's do this, because Jess has to go, and I'm fine with cutting the meeting short today, because I think we've accomplished everything. What I will do for the next meeting, and I want to set the date before you go, Jess, real quick, is put together all of the recommendations that I think we've resolved, put these new ones in, and then put the 3 or 4 that we're still kicking around, and try and get this all set for the next meeting. Does that sound like a plan?
I can just add one more thing to this
Absolutely.
idea possibly of extending for Saturdays. Is one of our other issues was parking during all of these events. And I think that actually sort of kills 2 birds with 1 stone, because the big problem with all of the big events is Saturday.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It would, I'll tell you what, if we did Saturdays through October, it would solve the Sea Witch issue of people parking starting on, when did they start this week? Was it Tuesday or
Well,
Wednesday?
they did a good job. The police put up those metal barriers.
Yeah, but that was after people were parked.
Yeah, there were some people already in there. I saw that.
No, people were there, I know most people were there since Wednesday.
Were they?
Yeah,
They didn't put the barriers up until
Did they?
2 AM.
They had chairs, honest to God, they had chairs set up
I saw people walk with
on the
chairs.
bend Thursday.
Oh,
I saw people walk with chairs. But the
And
cars,
I think I read about it in the paper,
yeah.
that if it's easy to do
I
that.
had a guy whip out a grill, seriously, and they were
Well-
grilling.
the cars
Oh my
come and they
gosh.
park on Tuesday or Wednesday, and
Right.
the barriers don't go up until that 2 AM when they start towing
Yeah.
the middle thing.
Right.
And then you can't get your car out, but nobody cares,
Right,
because at that point, that's where you wanna be. So,
Luckily, that's not our problem.
The other question I would at least ask is, why is it they have no parking on the median side rather than on
Yeah,
the
street side.
side with the
I know,
sidewalks?
that's-
Because if the cars were not there by the sidewalk, more people would be able to see the
Yes.
parade easier.
And get around.
Well, yeah, why
Well,
not
why
let
they
them
chose
park
that?
on the
It's a good
median?
question.
I don't understand that, so we need to, I guess, ask the parking people that, or the police or
I
somebody.
think it's probably a police thing, so. Jess has to go, so let's set the next meeting.
I got a parking ticket over Sea Witch.
Good.
Oh, you did, you
Thank
have a
for
parking
contributing.
lot.
What'd you do?
I had to load up, and it was at 8:30 in the morning, Saturday morning, and it had said, was it Saturday or Friday? No, Friday morning. No parking Friday 2 a.m. No park, through whatever. And I pulled in Saturday morning at 8 whatever. I went in to the store to open it up, and I had 3 loads of stuff of supplies that I keep somewhere else. And I came back out, and I literally hadn't been 15 minutes.
Oh,
But
yeah, the old
the
car's
loading-
only gone for 10 minutes.
The loading zone was taken, and there was not a other place to, I could have parked in the bus stop, but that wouldn't have worked. Anyway,
what are
So
we looking at?
let's look, because the week of the 25th is out, because that's Thanksgiving week. What's the week of the 18th look like?
I'm out of town that week.
18th of November,
Yeah,
that
you're out that whole week?
we arrived back, I think, in the afternoon of the 18th.
I cannot do the week of the 25th at all, because I'm at church the whole week prepping for Thanksgiving. So
I'm good.
how about the,
I mean, I don't wanna,
how about the week
for
of
a
the
meeting, I
2nd
can
of
do a
December?
meeting.
Because
I'm here open all the time, so other than a Monday.
How,
Like,
how,
my
how
December gets
soon though
crazy.
do we need to be with the commissioners? I mean, I certainly have no problem with you all meeting without me, as long as
I
you
think
can do
there's
that.
too much happening at this point to
Because
get.
my fear is the commissioners meet without us.
Yeah.
That they're
Right.
gonna make their decisions.
No, I don't think, I think
Based
Paul's
on their
waiting,
complaints.
Paul's waiting for us on
Okay.
this stuff, so, I mean,
Can't we send them what we have?
I'd prefer to do a whole presentation, because if we send them piecemeal, guess what they're gonna,
I mean, does it make any sense to do it in 2 weeks?
well, that's what I'm looking
11
at.
that week?
Did you say 11
Yeah, that week. Oh, you're gonna be out of town that week?
until the 18th?
11th to the 18th?
Today to the
Oh,
18th.
oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
and I just can't.
But, I mean, you'll have a quorum.
I kind of hate to put it off to December. I almost think
Yeah,
the
no, I
week of the
agree.
18th
Do
would be
do
better.
the meeting, yeah.
All right, can everybody else be here?
Except Monday.
Okay,
Maybe on Monday.
what day works?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
All right, let me check with Ann for either 19th, 20th, or 21st, and then send it out. Because I can never figure out the city calendar until maybe.
I'm good. I'm good that whole
Do you
week.
prefer mornings or afternoons?
I'm for
Which day,
mornings.
which
I'm
day?
not
But
I can't be there, so-
mornings are good for me.
Oh, wait, that week?
Two doesn't work for me.
The week of the 18th?
I can't be
Oh,
there
and
that
you're
week.
not here?
Right.
Oh, forget it.
Well,
That's-
Well,
no,
come
no.
back the 18th.
Yeah, no.
Oh, you're
19th,
back.
21,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Do you do it the 19th?
Well, we have to wait and see if, I've got to check with the city.
Right,
So I'm going to
gotcha.
look for the 19th, 20th, and 21st, which,
2 p.m. is not a good time for me.
okay.
But
Morning?
I'm good. Morning's
had to
great,
do-
afternoon's great, just 2, I have to cover from 2 to 3.
We had to do, because I had to switch it because of Dee's follow-up appointment.
This,
and-
which worked great, 1
And,
o'clock.
and we had to sandwich ourselves in between meetings, so I will look for the 19th, 20th, or 21st in the morning. Preferably not the 19th in the morning, just because you're just getting back, but I'll figure out one of those 3 and talk with her and go from there, okay?
Yeah,
No?
21st isn't good for me.
All right, I'll check 19th and 20th.
It should be a short meeting if we just stick to that subject.
It should
Just
be.
Getting it ready for commissioners.
Okay.
I'll try 19th and 20th, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Seems like there's more things.
Well, I would looked
Isn't it?
over this again last night, and there isn't really, we've nailed pretty much of this. I mean, the big issues were
Well, we've
around-
got 30 minutes.
We've
We
talked
got-
about that, we know the recommendations for that, we've done scooters.
Maybe next year we talk about park and drive. We don't need to talk about it now, but park and ride can be made better.
I mean, I looked over most of this, and a lot of it is recommendations that we have to remake.
So I almost think that every
you
block
need
should,
one.
every block should look the same in terms of where the handicap and where the 30 minutes are. And allocate X amount of handicap and X amount of 30 minutes to each block. And you put I think you put the 30 minutes in the middle, and I think you put the handicaps at the end, so that they've got easier access to the crossways and all that, and make sure that they're built for, like the handicap in front of my store, it only works if you're the driver. If you're the passenger, you've got to park in the other section that's supposed to be
Because
used.
it takes 2 spaces, really.
Because you can't get out, you can't pull a wheelchair up and get out, and stuff like that. But I just think that I just put that on for the next. But, you know, then that way, again, you keep it simple, and so that you know exactly where all the 30 minutes are in
Thank you.
various blocks, and you know where all the
Thank you, sir.
handicap
See you
is
soon.
and all there. And I wouldn't mind donating some more handicap to replace some of the missing 30, or the 30s if we kill them. Because we're getting more and more people who are, at least I'm hearing a ton of people come in and say, you know, they can't find any handicap. But they also think that it's free, like it is in Ocean City.
I think finally, that's changing somewhat though, because it used to be free here a number of years ago, and so many people were abusing that.
That's because the state doesn't get me started on
Yeah,
how they issued the
Right.
handicap placards and permits. There's no criteria.
But there are, you know, very deserving individuals who need that and are having I mean, I rent out parking spaces, and they are primarily to people with handicap, because they know now that they can like drop someone off at the boardwalk, then they can park and then meet them at the boardwalk and then take them to wherever they need to go, or, you know, drop them off at the corner on First and then park and then go catch up with them. They sit at the seats at, you know, DeFebo or something like that. But when you talk to them, they're like, you know, if we want to go to someplace, it's very hard for us to find that. I think we could somehow maybe recommend somewhere down the line. If it's not, maybe it's, you know, after this full round of stuff, but look at it going forward a little bit more handicap.
Well, it could be for our next.
I mean, I don't need it, so it has
Topics.
nothing to do, and none of my family and all that. I'm just
Interestingly,
thinking.
on that subject, is John Dewey that we're recommending to, he was the one that brought this thing to the commission about the new $700,000 bathrooms not having, not handicapped accessible, but they weren't family accessible, where you could take your loved one in and help them.
Really?
Yeah, he was the one
There
that
are
brought it.
no family
There aren't,
restrooms?
no. And Dick Byrne said, too, you know, there really should have been when you were thinking of spending $700,000, you know? But John was one that brought that to their attention, sort of made a fuss about it. And everybody said, oh, yeah, I guess we should have.
But no, it seems like we've covered some good stuff.
I think,
And tough ones. I like the 4 hour. I think that's
I think it's a good
good compromise.
compromise.
Now, you can come at 6 o'clock and you can park without moving till 10, and then you still don't have to park.
Yep. I'm gonna look this over, but I think we've
Move.
covered just about everything. So I'll make the list and I will put on the agenda the items that we actually have to.
Now, I would like, I mean, can we, in our own way, ask around about the Saturday only?
Yeah.
And so when we
And I'm
come
gonna talk
back,
to
we
the-
can get
I'll talk to the city about the challenges
the
with that.
issues for that.
Right.
I'll mention it to Main Street guy. And I'll talk to Carol about it and see if they can run it up their flagpole and explain to her the reasoning behind it. That we've been looking at it. And, you know, we feel
Because the
that there's.
permits will not be in effect, so they have an alternative. All they have to do is drive a couple blocks away to a permitted area and it's free. So
Right.
there's an easy alternative for anyone that screams and hollers about it.
I think if we can talk it up, like you said, if you guys talk, I'll check with the city on its challenges.
So I'll talk to Main Street, I'll talk to the chamber and see if I can,
Fed's reduced a quarter point. if
I know,
anyone
I just saw
cares.
that. I was trying to send Ann an email to ask her about the meetings, but,
All right
Okay.
then.
so adjourn?
Adjourn.
Thank you. I will get back to you as soon as, matter of fact, I'm gonna send Ann the email right now so that I don't forget on that date. And I'll be with you guys in just a sec.
so we just did, we just made, how much did we make the city from one parking year to the next?
Somewhere between 900 and
$1 million bucks.
But did you see that included tickets?
No, but.
I thought they said it didn't
Well,
previously.
That's because that's the reporting was not correct, I believe.
Aha.
Because we got the statistic, tickets were down.
Yeah.
Considerably.
But then I read somewhere else that it was including tickets. I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, that was in that thing you
Right.
just sent out.
Right,
Really?
okay, that where I saw that.
But I was looking at the numbers,
Right.
the actual, I mean, it's like up 15, it was up 15 to 20% in terms of like transactions.
Yeah, right.
Parking transactions.
So that's.
So that tells me
turnover.
people are here. Turnover, people are here.
Turnover, more permits, you know, blah, blah, blah.
But in a year when we've all had a 50% tax increase, making a little more money is okay. You know, everybody has their fair share. All right, guys, see y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, what do you guys need from me?
Howdy, just quick soundbite. Sounds like a lot was talked about, but not done yet. Sounds like a lot of approval still needed. So just a little bit of why it's important, why people should care about it, and why residents and businesses specifically should.
Sure, you want me over there?
Yeah, if you can come around this side. Are you seeing levels too? Are you seeing levels too? I gotta turn this on.
So this can be your breaking news.
Yeah, yeah. So much for the hazmat situation, but
Yeah,
parking.
Parking usually gets people more upset than hazmat.
Yeah, yeah, it really does.
You just must stay right back here. And you're just gonna look at him and.
Yep.
Probably done it before.
Many times.
Let me know when you're ready to go.
Yep, just hold the mic up here and I'll frame it.
Nice to meet you, by the way.
Thank you. Linda Kaufman, I chair the Housing Advisory Committee for the City of Rehoboth. So we met today, we're trying to